Okay, let's go ahead and get started on this there, folks. I want to quickly hurry up on this because I'm late. I'm coming into this, you know, Blackheart's been kind of patiently waiting for me. So, um, welcome back to another Unreal Engine study session. I'm your host, Stranger Jim, and today we're going to be covering submixes today on the Unreal Engine study session. So hopefully you're going to enjoy that. Um, Continue to stay tuned for as we continue our journey through Unreal Engine, so that we can prepare ourselves for when we do a eventual game clone, and then, after that, we'll build a game for ourselves. But obviously, we need to know more about what the Unreal Engine is all about before we really tackle, a harder challenge. So, hopefully, you'll stick with us on that. So I see Blackheart's in the stage. He's been very patient with me, so I thank him for that. So let's go ahead and add him in here real quick. Invite him to speak. There we go.
Hello there, Jim. How
Uh,
you doing?
oh, my friend. Sorry for the wait. You know,
No problem.
I was dealing with a lot of like facepalm moments from the Pega stream.
Oh.
Or, uh, I was dealing with, some questions that didn't really make that much sense to me. It was like, wait, hold on, you guys are talking about this, but you meant this before. It's like, what are you talking about? What? It's like it
Some irregularities there.
it felt that way. Basically, they were talking about how, hey, you can give permissions to these particular roles, like um, you can give this role of developer all these, different permissions. You can give this role of administrator all these different permissions, and you can give this role of manager all these different permissions and stuff like that. Then you add them into you add them into these access groups that, supposedly you can just put this access group into whatever you want them to kind of um, be able to have access to, an application or whatever, right? And they mentioned the fact that, well, all the roles that are now in that access group have the best permissions that are associated with the best role. So if you basically put in an administrator that has like all the permissions into that access group, and you put in like a customer role into that access group as well, then that they're basically saying that the customer has all the permissions of the administrator.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait, what? It's like,
That should not be the case.
yeah, right. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about on this? So, um, so I'm kind of confused about what they're kind of going for on the last two topics that I tackled
Yeah, that definitely
on
sounds very confusing.
yeah. So, um, so I was kind of dealing with the last. I was dealing with the questions that they posted at the very end of the topics. They have like a little ending quiz, for a topic list, right? And
Right.
you know, I was like going, wait, hold on, they're these questions aren't making any sense. What are you doing? So yeah, so I don't know. So apologies for being late, but I was kind of dealing with
Don't
trying
worry
to
about it.
figuring out that whole mess. So oh yeah, but obviously everybody's here to continue working on learning the Unreal Engine. We finished off the audio stream caching overview yesterday. Um, we pretty much called it a little early on that because there were some parts of it that were getting into a little bit more nuanced
Yeah.
processes that were like, we could probably skip that for now. I mean, obviously, if we need to, we can always come back to it, but you know, for the most part, I think those topics are like, maybe for certain situations that we might not necessarily deal with right away. Um, so yeah, we're gonna be moving on to submixes here, and according to the scroll bar here, the submix section is a fairly long and hefty section from the looks of it.
Yep. It's quite sizable.
So, which
Although
makes
there are a lot of images, though.
yeah, true. But I mean, it makes sense if the submix is kind of meant to be kind of like a mixing board, kind of, like how I've made the reference that like if their submixes are very much like a sound studio's mixing board, with an engineer, trying to adjust everybody's you know volume level or something like that, or they need to kind of um, change a sound in some small manner or another to try to handle something, then yeah, I can understand the need for a lot of potential information being added in here. How
Yeah.
much we're going to cover, I don't really know. It feels, again,
No idea.
quite a bit of information here. It feels very nuanced. Um, but at the same time, we may need to understand it fully, my friend, because Um, I would not be too surprised if we're going to be using the submixes a bit in this one.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Again, I don't know, but I would figure that we're probably going to be using the submix at some point. Even our first clone game, I would imagine that we're probably going to be using one. Maybe. Again,
Yeah,
I don't,
probably.
I don't know. So, shall we get into it?
Yeah. Let's.
Okay. So, we're probably gonna be cutting halfway through this entire section, or maybe we'll cut it a little early for those of you that are just coming into it right now. But I just want to give you all heads up. It all depends on where we're gonna be like, yeah, maybe we should put this off for later. And again, Blackheart, if you feel like we're maybe getting into a little too nuanced, then feel free to speak up and let me know, and we'll we can move on. Okay.
Yeah.
So so submix is a DSP or digital signal processing graph. We've seen the DSP before, so this isn't exactly new. Um, but it's a graph that is always running even when no audio is being sent. Okay, interesting. Um, so um, So if it's a graph that is always running when no audio is being sent, then I guess that it's like basically like a flat line, like an audio wave would actually have a wave to it, or like you would see, um, like in the picture above, you see like the fire one, right? You see the slight um, peaks and slight dips and increases a little bit in the fire one. It's a little bit more pronounced in light one as well. Those are
Yeah.
you know you know sound waves. So if no audio is being sent, then one would just see a flat line, right? There's no audio, so there's no waves to it, right? So you know it'd be like the my sound cue with like pretty much a or reverse gate. That's just pretty much a flat line. There's nothing there. So at least I'm making that assumption. You know, I'm
It
making
does sound like it could be that way.
uh, you know, because if it's always running, then obviously it's always doing that. You know, flat line. Um, like if you've done any kind of um, editing for like a video, right? Um, you'll notice that the audio for the edit, you'll notice that at times you'll see the flat line if there's like nothing going on, if you don't really hear anything, there's like dead silence. And then, as soon as like the first sound comes on, like, you're speaking up for the first time or whatnot, you'll see that, spike, right then and there, right?
Right.
So, so I'm assuming that that's what it's kind of all about there. So, that submix is just basically that entire line. So, yeah, okay. A fundamental component of the audio renderer is in Unreal Engine. Submixes have a dual purpose: to mix audio generated from individual sources into a single output buffer, okay, and to optimize the application of digital signal processing (DSP) effects to multiple sound sources simultaneously. Okay. Hmm. Wonder how it handles the optimization there, but um, I mean, to mix audio generated from individual sources into a single output buffer, sure, makes sense. That's, you know, kind of what a mixer does anyway. But to optimize, not quite sure what it does there, but maybe they'll explain more on that,
Hopefully.
hopefully. Think of your submixes as flowing rivers. Okay. When a sound plays, it pours into the submix. When one submix connects to another, it cascades into the next. All the sounds pouring together mix into one stream of sound and flow down. And like a river, the flow is only one direction, or is in one direction only. Okay, makes sense. Um, so yeah, okay. Each submix endpoint, hardware output, is fed from a single graph. For example, the master submix, a single default submix endpoint, defines a single submix graph. Okay, makes sense. A sound cue can send to a submix the same as any other U sound base. Okay. Um, Not quite sure what that really means, to be honest. Um, are they basically saying that a sound cue is the same as any other U sound base? That they're the same in some fashion, or not quite sure what they're kind of talking about there, to be honest.
Not sure myself either.
Hmm. You can use a blueprint to modify properties on a submix, changing the way that submix processes audio. Right, okay. So creating a submix. So a submix can be created directly in the content browser, much like other sound-related assets. Right-click on the content browser asset area and select Sounds, Mix Sound as Sound Submix. This will create a new sound submix asset in the content browser. Okay. Um, So the submix graph editor. Double click a submix asset to open the submix graph editor. So I guess you just double click this, the new, the new sound submix in the content browser, and you'll get the graph editor here. So you can connect submixes into a graph structure and set the output of one submix as the input to another submix. Okay, makes sense. Um, if you have one submix that has a certain set of certain like sounds or audio playing or something along those lines, then it makes sense that you're kind of transitioning from one to another. Like like maybe you are traveling from um, one stage to another, for example. So the music for one stage might change into the next stage, right? So kind of, or the audio for the music for one stage, obviously gets removed, and then you have the new stages music popping up, right? So makes sense.
Right.
So and obviously you'd want to have those different musics in the different submixes, and that's it. You don't want them kind of put into the same submix, because then you'd have both the music sounds being played at the same time, and well, that doesn't really work. Right?
Right.
Uh, so to create a new submix from within in the graph editor, drag an output or input pin into the graph. Then name the new submix. Names cannot contain spaces. The new submix will be added to the content browser. Okay. Um, so this is a little interesting here, that they have like three different submixes that are parents that will go into like a new submix there. Like, makes me kind of curious as to, how they would, split out these different submixes kind of thing. Um, it also makes me wonder if any of these sounds from these previous submixes will kind of continue into the new submix at all, or do they like get like instantly cut off or something like that? Makes me
Or
wonder.
merged.
Or merged, yeah. I don't know. Seems not quite sure what's kind of going on there completely, but we'll see. Um, submix can have multiple inputs, but only one output. Good to know. Um, the master submix. The master submix parameters are set from project settings, edit project settings, engine, audio, and then mix. Double click the submix icon to access the master submix properties. Okay. So what's the difference between a master submix and a regular submix? Is there really a major difference between the two? Hmm.
Hmm.
The master submix is directly connected to the output endpoint, such as hardware speakers. This is the final rendering stage for the audio mixer, after which audio is passed on to the platform audio backend, then to the audio device that platform uses. If a submix output pin is not connected to anything else, it will send the output to the master submix. Okay. Okay, so um, we kind of above it talked about how um, you pour one submix into a flowing river, which pours into another port, and pours into another, pours in, cascades into the next, and it all goes down like a river, right? Um, so, for example, the master submix, a single default submix endpoint defines a single submix graph. So, um, so it sounds to me like um, you have all these submixes kind of happening that are handling various portions of your game over time, or maybe it's not even like a time-based kind of scenario, right? Maybe it's um, well, I don't know. I don't know how they you know, are what I'm kind of confused about right at this moment in time is, they have one sound mix output going into an input for another sound mix, right?
Right.
Um, is that like a time, obviously, well, it kind of is a time-based thing because obviously you have a sound mix that has potentially a lot of sound added into the sound mix to make it, right? You have like, maybe some sound effects, you have some audio, some music or something like that. And that output goes into the input for another sound mix that, might have its own, music um, and sound effects and so on and so forth as well, right? Um, so obviously there is a certain amount of time in that, but my the other thing that I'm kind of wondering about um, is it like, hey, the first sound mix is like 5 minutes in length, and you are taking the output of that, putting it into input for another like 6 minute submix of music and the like. Are both of those going to be like overlapped with each other in a sense that the 5 minutes are going to be kind of combined with the 6 minutes? So all total, everything will be done within the 6 minutes. But now you have like 5 minutes of submix being um, done at the same time as the 6 minute submix as well? Or is it going to be like 5 minutes and then 6 minutes, so a total of like 11 minutes of sound in that, you know? And,
Yeah, I don't think that has been properly explained here.
yeah, and I'm I'm assuming because it's talking about the master submix, you need the output from the last submix that you created going into a master submix, so it kind of takes all those submixes together and puts out that master line of audio, right? Of the sound effects, the audio, the music, so on and so forth to kind of process it all to be sent to the hardware speakers. And again, um, is it taking both of those submixes and creating 11 minutes, or are they combining together to make a 6 minute? I'm not sure. I'm kind of confused about that right at this moment in time. I'm not
Like it's
sure.
missing like it's saying what this is actually doing. Like it's showing us, yeah, you can connect the output to an input, but what it's doing, it's not telling us.
Yeah. Um, Now, I'm gonna make the assumption, and it might be a bad one, but it's an assumption that when you put in audios into one submix, music, sound effects, so on and so forth into one submix, and you take the output of that and put it into an input of another submix that's also like, take the 5 minutes, put it into the 6 minutes one, right? I'm going to make the assumption that once that output for the 6 minutes goes into the master is going to take both of those submixes, combine them together into a 11-minute long audio file, and output that to the hardware. That's what I'm going to make the assumption for, in that regard. Again, I don't really
It could
know.
be doing that, as it could also be running both sounds at the same time, but that is also a possibility.
Yeah. It could run both sounds at the same time. Again, I don't know. I don't know whether or not, it might be taking that 5 minute and overlapping the 6 minutes. So now you have like a combination of the two. It's kind of merging the two
Yeah.
together into one final output, from the master, right? So, but, I don't know. I don't know how they, what happens there. So, Uh, but I guess we'll just move on, and maybe the answer will come about soon, but I don't know. We'll see.
Hopefully. And if it doesn't and somebody knows, do let us know or be on the chat or down in the comments below.
Indeed, indeed. So, um, okay. Master Reverb Submix. The Master Reverb Submix settings are in the sound class. Um, Set the Master Reverb Submix. Send sounds to Master Reverb. Default 2D reverb send amount sets the send level for 2D sounds when sent to the master reverb. Okay. Um, what exactly does the master reverb submix, and what does the master reverb even do? um, I don't know. We'll move on there.
Yeah.
Master EQ submix. What was the EQ again? It was um,
Equalizer or something like that.
yeah, I think so. Equalizer. Settings for the master EQ submix are in sound class under legacy. Okay, interesting. Why under legacy? Um, Normally, whenever you see legacy, it typically means that, hey, it's something that is going to be like deprecated. Typically, from my experience
Yeah, I
anyway.
do remember at one point it did say that even though it's there, it's not exactly being used. Like another part of configuration kind of took over that role.
Yeah. So the output to master EQ submix settings must be enabled for the EQ settings on sound class mixes to work. Okay, sending audio to a submix. There are several ways to send sound sources into a submix. Set up the send manually in a sound source asset. Okay, interesting. Use attenuation settings. Set dynamically in a blueprint, or set it through audio volumes. Okay, interesting. Manually set up a submix send. To play a sound source on a submix or to send its generated audio to a submix, assign a new submix asset to the submix property on the sound source. The submix property on sound assets is considered the base submix of the sound, and 100% of the audio is sent to that submix. Okay, interesting. Um, so if you set up you know, if you're basically setting um, that generated audio, you set the submix for, a particular submix for that. Um, it can't really be used in any other submixes afterwards. It feels like you can't. Um,
I mean, not within the same submix. Like, can't repeat itself in there.
well, I don't know about repeating it. You might be able to maybe change the settings about repeating, but obviously like if you have it assigned to a particular submix, then you won't be able to assign it to any other submix. Like up above it, you saw the one uh, like the my submix, new parent two, and the new submix, right? Um, so if you have one sound that is added to my submix, right? Um, you might not be able to manually set it to a new submix later. Like it can only be used within the my submix. So that feels very like limiting depending on what you're trying to do. Um, like it might work in some regards, like like maybe stage music, right? You might not necessarily need to use that on any other submixes later. So so it makes sense in that regards, right? But if you have something like, you know, like a gun firing, sound, sound effects, then if you can't use it in any other submix later, then are you going to get to a point where it's like, hey, this sound will eventually cut off and you will never hear it ever again afterwards? You know, that's what I'm kind of curious about there, but I'm not sure.
I don't really think so.
Yeah, that's why I'm like on, this feels very limiting if that would be the case. If it's like saying, hey, you can't send it to any other submixes if it can only go to this
I
one.
don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, I would hope not, but again, I don't know. Um, whether or not that's what they're doing here. Because they say here, um, the submix property for the sound asset is considered the base submix for this of the sound, and 100% of the audio is sent to that submix. So, um,
I don't think that's referring to exclusivity over set sound.
yeah. Uh, I hope there's the possibility of being able to send it to another submix later if you need it to, but again, I don't know. Maybe it's something that you might be able to like maybe set it up as the default sound mix, through the blueprints, but maybe you can change that through code later on. Like, hey, I need the sound. Obviously you started off the default. Here it is in this one submix. We'll use it at the very beginning, but we need to change it to another submix later. In the game. So in code, we may need to change, like we may need to say, okay, remove said sound mix, add in this new sound mix or something like that. I don't know.
That just be generating a new sound mix with the same sound but a different setup. It wouldn't really be migrating the sound at all. It's just generating a new one with the same sound.
Right, but I mean the submix might include sound effects that we might not necessarily need. Um,
That would be how we set it up.
right. You know. Now if the sound mix is just like, hey, this is just a gun firing, and that's it. Like it doesn't have any other sound files associated with it whatsoever. Like it's just the gun firing, and that's it. Then I can understand you reusing that submix over and over again, depending on, where you need to use it, right? So, that should be perfectly fine. Um, but if the submix is something that, could include, more than just like the sound effects, like it includes both, like, all the audios that are happening at that particular moment in time, um, then you might need to try to figure out ways of like isolating, you know, certain sounds to be able to be sent to different submixes over time. You know, that's that's my that's my thought line right at this moment in time. So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you can um, that either way probably should be possible. I would imagine, but again, I don't know. Not quite sure how they kind of handle their submixes, to be fair. So properties, submix sends. A submix sends array is on a sound asset is an array of further submixes to which sound sources can send a portion of their audio. Sends can be done either manually or via distance. For example, the further away a sound is, the less audio it might send to a submix. Okay. Send level control method, how the source should send its audio to the indicated submix. Okay. Manual, a sound sends its audio directly using the sound send level value. Linear, a sound sends its audio to the submix using a linear mapping between the min and max send level and the min and max send distance. Custom curve uses the custom send level curve to send its audio to the submix instead of using linear mapping. Send stage determines whether the source send should be done before or after distance attenuation is applied. Sound remix, which submix sound source is sending its audio to using the submix send entry. Send level, the send level to use if the send level control method is set to manual. Min send level, the minimum send level to use when using the non-manual send level control method. Maximal send level to use when applying the linear control method. Minimum distance to use when applying the linear control method. And the maximum distance to use when applying the minimum linear control method. Okay, and custom send level curve, the curve to use for mapping the minimum, maximum send level, and distance. Hmm. A lot of the ending values there, I'm not 100% sure of what they're trying to go for on that completely. Um, so hmm, maybe it's something that we'll have to kind of test out a little bit more when we start doing a
Yeah. Maybe experiment with that a little bit.
yeah. Okay. Send to submixes using sound attenuation. Submix sends can also be set using attenuation settings. This is a convenient way to set up submix sends on large numbers of assets from one place, since submix sends can send their audio based on distance to the listener. It makes sense to use this where distance attenuation is also defined. Hmm.
That's way further on at sound attenuation, which is later down the line.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay. We're getting close to the end here, my friend.
Yeah,
I'm sorry again for taking so long on the Pega development. But
don't worry about it.
um, but maybe we should kind of cut off here for the time being, if that's okay. Or do you want me to cover
Yeah,
this next?
there is still quite a lot to cover. I mean, I think we're about halfway still.
I think there's probably a little bit more than halfway, but yeah, close to it. Anyway. Um,
Yeah, because there's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 subjects left on this one.
yeah. And don't know if we're going to be covering all those topics per se, but you know, we'll we can
Don't
we can try to
know.
do what we can. Maybe. I don't know. um, but again, we're probably going to be needing to know these at the very least. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Um, I get the feeling like it's talking about how you need to go about doing this, but not necessarily the whys. You know,
Let's see.
or at least
Like the part that I would like it would explain is what happens when with the outputs into the input. Like what is that actually doing? Is it merging the sounds? Is it putting them in some form of queue of some sort? What is that doing?
yeah,
As for the part we just read, it makes me feel like the send distance is just attenuation itself. Sound level 1 I'm not entirely sure what it is.
yeah. Um,
The custom mix curve, I kind of understand it. I think on the Blender has something similar where you have a wave you can edit. I just don't know what exactly that would do.
right. Well, I mean, if you're editing the sound wave and then you're changing how how the sound will sound like, right? So
But how would it actually be affecting it?
I mean,
That would be the question.
yeah, well, I mean, um, if you're able to actually change the wave in like making it smaller, making the waves larger or smaller or something like that, then obviously you're affecting how the sound wave will actually um, you know what you're actually hearing from that particular sound wave, right? Um, how, yeah, we're still not there yet. As to, like if you raise up the level, the peaks and the valleys of the sound wave, what exactly, how exactly does that change the sound itself, right? We're not quite sure about that, um, but again, that also, are we even able to do that per se, in this, you know, maybe we can, maybe
Yeah,
we
I don't
can't.
know.
I'm not sure. Um, Sounds to me like, it. One would think that if with this being an engine, you're most likely trying to bring in audio files from like outside of it, and if you want to change what the sound, you know, really sounds like, hey, you want a song.
It just a sec. Ahora, no puedo ahora. Let's get it there. That just pissed me off, and I'm gonna have to say a few damn words to that guy. Pretty sure that Mike picked it up. I'm gonna have to mute that part.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened, but
No,
um,
I just simply have one number one rule when I'm streaming: don't use my name.
gotcha. I don't know. I haven't. I don't hear anything personally on that one,
I
but
know, but that's because Discord has noise canceling. The
yeah,
OBS does not.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay. Like if you're like trying to create a sound that has like a guitar or piano or something like that, I would have you know I would figure that the Unreal Engine wouldn't necessarily be able to change that sound from like a guitar to a piano, but then again, I don't really know. I don't know what the capabilities of that would be. Can you actually do that in Unreal itself? I would figure probably not, but again, I don't know. I'm not sure what the full like capabilities of it is. So, um, but okay, my friend, I think we'll go ahead and call it here. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh, we'll
get something to eat and have a word with him.
no worries.
I
Uh,
don't know, it just pisses me off. He doesn't give three shits with what I'm doing here, even though it's actually doing me some good.
yeah.
Already got into fights with him because of that.
Mm, understandable. Understandable, my
Okay,
friend.
okay. So
All
I guess
right.
I'll stay.
Well,
I
I'll
will
let.
probably send you later for Warframe.
Yep. You enjoy your break, and we'll continue then. So, for those of you that are watching us right now, thank you for joining us for this Unreal study session. Hopefully, um, maybe you got more out of it than we did. Again, feel free to reach out to us to maybe clarify some of the issues that were maybe hung up on. That would be fantastic. Um, leave a comment either in our chat right now while we're live streaming, or leave it on our in the comment section. Um, we're always happy to learn. Um, if as long as you're like willing to kind of explain it well enough, we may ask additional questions in the comment section, so be prepared for that. um, but especially if we're not like fully like grasping onto it too, they're, you know, let's face it, we're it feels like we're just kind of scratching the surface of this. Like we're seeing like the top part of the iceberg when we all know that like below the surface there's a lot more to it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely a lot more.
so um, so obviously there's probably going to be more additional questions later, if anything. Um, but obviously, we're doing what we can to get through it. So be patient with us as we're continuing on with the um, sound section here. We're getting close to the end there. We're going to finish up submixes tomorrow. We'll go on to sound synesthesia tomorrow or the next day. Ambient sound actor user guide, audio files, sound attenuation, sound cue editor, sound cue reference. Now it looks like sound cue editor has some additional sub topics as well, and who knows how many those are. But we'll
Yeah.
deal with that when we get there. Um, so all told, like if it each one of these topics takes an hour, then we're probably going to be seeing what another minimum 7 hours of topics. We'll see.
Probably.
And then we'll move on to the next topic, which will be artificial intelligence, or at least that's the one that we had set up prior. So,
Yeah.
and then we'll get into all that. So, but that's it for the Unreal Engine study session for now. Um, Blackheart will move on to get himself something to eat and will join us later for some more Warframe later on tonight. And I will move on to doing some video uploads. So, um, want to thank everybody for watching. I appreciate, everybody being here. Um, I'm sure that Blackheart appreciates it as well.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's going to be it. Do you have any like additional concerns or questions at all there, Blackheart? Or
Not at the moment.
okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Um, okay, but that's going to be it. Let's go ahead and close on down, my friend. And
Yeah.
yeah, for everybody else watching, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you all next time.